The question many people ask, and I know the question my wife is still asking me, is how did a reporter like me end up deep in the Amazon, trying to solve what has been described as the greatest exploration mystery of the 20th century? What happened to the legendary British explorer Percy Fawcett, who in 1925 disappeared in the Amazon while searching for an ancient civilization, a place he had called simply and rather cryptically the City of Z. Fawcett began exploring the Amazon in 1906, and his mission was to map the interior. And he explored the Amazon for almost the next 2 decades. And during that time, he began to gather clues that led him to believe that the jungle contained an ancient civilization. Finally, after years of gathering evidence and becoming obsessed with finding this place, he set out to find it in 1925. And he took with him only 2 people on his expedition. His older son, Jack, who was 21 years old and had his 22nd birthday while they were in the jungle, and Jack's best friend, Raleigh Rymel. Now, Fawcett had said he may be out of touch for a year, but a second year passed and the anxieties grew about what might have happened to them. And even though Fawcett warned that nobody should follow in his wake due to the danger, hundreds of explorers and scientists and adventurers soon plunged into the jungle, determined to try to either find evidence of Fawcett or to find evidence of Z. Many of these parties died of disease and starvation. Other parties were killed by hostile tribesmen. And then there were some who simply disappeared without a trace, like Fawcett. Fawcett tried to find an easier route back, but each time he chose a path, the expedition ended up on a cliff and was forced to turn around. How long could we carry on was the vital question, Fawcett wrote. Unless food was obtained soon, we should soon be too feeble to make our way out by any route. They had gone for more than a month with almost no food and were starving. Their blood pressure plummeted and their bodies consumed their own tissue. Quote, the voices of the others and the sounds of the forest seemed to come from a vast distance, as though through a long tube, Fawcett wrote. Unable to think about the past or the future, about anything other than food, the men became irritable, apathetic, and paranoid. In their weakened state, they were more susceptible to disease and infection, and most of them had developed severe fevers. Fawcett feared mutiny had they begun to look at one another differently, not as companions, but as meat. Now, when I began my expedition, or my interest in the story, I initially began it in a way much more suited to my poor physical attributes, which is I went around to libraries all around the world, from Brazil to Europe to London, trying to find letters and diaries from Fawcett's party. And eventually I had gone to Cardiff, Wales, where I tracked down Fawcett's granddaughter. And she asked me at a certain point, do you really want to know what happened to my grandfather? And I said, sure, if at all possible. And she had led me into this back room. And in this back room, there was an old trunk. And she opened it up, and inside were these old books. And the bindings were breaking apart. They were covered in dust. And I said, well, what are they? And she said, those are my grandfather's secret diaries and log books. And she allowed me to go through them. And these books held enormous clues both to the mystery of Fawcett's life and also to the mystery of his death. And they had a lot of clues as to where Fawcett had actually gone in the jungle while searching for the City of Z. And it was really at that point, when I had this information, that I too became very obsessed with the story of Fawcett, and decided to do something very out of character, very risky, and perhaps even a little foolish, which was to plunge into the jungle myself and see if I could solve the mystery. I looked up at the tangle of trees and creepers around me, and at the biting flies and mosquitoes that left streaks of blood on my skin. I had lost my guide. I was out of food and water. Putting the map back in my pocket, I pressed forward, trying to find my way out, as branches snapped in my face. Then I saw something moving in the trees. Who's there? I called. There was no reply. A figure flitted among the branches, and then another. They were coming closer, and for the first time I asked myself, what the hell am I doing here?